Hello, everybody. This is Hanani Powell from Auckland, New Zealand, and welcome to my Fusion Talks. If you've been following along, you might have seen me talk about really the world of Web3 and my adventure in it as a person who's been in the tech industry but has not been in this part of the tech industry. And so these talks have been my way of sharing what my experience has been and introducing you to people that I've met along the way. And you might have met a few people from Hawaii, from the Web3 Hawaii collective that I've been hanging out with for the past few months. We talked about community, we talked about using NFTs for social impact. And today I would like to introduce you to one of my favorite people. Actually, I say that about all of them, don't I? But it's true. I would like to introduce you to somebody that I have a lot of great conversations with about working in Web3. Web3, hello. It's like I bring it from Hawaii all the time, eh? So I'd like to introduce you to Sean Watase. He is, well, he's a lot of things. To me, he's a mentor. He probably doesn't know. It's not like he signed up. I kind of chose him, as I think some of other people may have as well. He is I guess it's a developer experience um, for Thirdweb. He is out of Hawaii, of course. And hello, Sean. You want to just introduce yourself? Say hi.
Hi, yes. Hi, Nani. Thank you for having me here. And yeah, so again, my name is Sean Watase. I am one of the developer experience engineers at Thirdweb, which is a Web3, I guess you could say, tech company. We do basically, we are building a tool and platform for developers to use to build Web3 or blockchain applications. And yeah, I'll go into a little bit more, I guess, about what my duty and job is there a little bit later on. But yeah, I'm born and raised in Hawaii. Met Nani through Webtree Hawaii. And I'm pretty sure you have all heard the story of how we've met, kind of formed the group together and everything. But yeah, glad to be here and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Just to let some folks know, Sean was one of, early in the year, I joined this group and I did a hackathon, one of those things where got some new coding skills and they're like, yeah, here you go. And so I think Sean was one of those people who just sort of just told us, helped us along of understanding how to make a game in Unity and how to do blockchain and connections like that. So, but he was just always been there. Um, I kind of want to move on and ask you what I've asked everybody. Basically, is what's your Web3 origin story?
Yeah. So my Web3 origin story, and it kind of goes into my story of where I am today, having a career in Web3. Um, Back in 2020, so the end of 2020, my friend introduced me to something called NBA Top Shot, which is NFT collection. You basically, they are like trading cards, like basketball NBA trading cards, but instead of just a card, they were NFTs, so they were digital. They're on their website, and they were highlight moments. So like a 10 to 20 second clip of a highlight of a player versus just having a picture of the player as a trading card. So my friend got me introduced to this. He was basically saying he was making a lot of money buying these NBA Top Shot NFTs. He was flipping them, and I love basketball, all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll give it a try. I got into it, and of course, I got into Web3. I got into crypto for the money. I feel like everyone that I've met, a lot of times, that's the popular opinion is that's
Yeah.
people make a lot of money, all of that stuff, which is why I got into it. Of course, my attitude towards it has changed to where I am today, but back in the day, that's how I got into it. And I, sorry, I started, buying these NFTs, trading them, flipping them, and making some money. And then it came across to me. I was like, how is this possible? How am I buying a video of an NBA player, and someone else is buying it for more money, and how am I making money on it? Like, it didn't make sense at first, right? So
Right.
that made me dive a little bit more into what are NFTs? What is this whole technology behind these digital collectibles that I'm purchasing? And that started me on this whole journey in 2021, where um, as I was doing research, I came across a game called Axie Infinity. If
Yep.
you go and search this game, it was a pretty popular game in the Web3 space. You could basically earn money or cryptocurrency playing a video game. And at the time, I took my profits from NBA Top Shot that I've made. I wrote it in because in order to play this game, you need to buy NFTs. So the entry cost was about $650 to even
Wow.
play a game, which, nowadays
Wow.
that's ridiculous, right? You pay $40, $50 to play a video game. Um, of course, we spend a lot more in video games after you buy the initial
Yeah,
game, but
yeah.
the
They should be
initial
paying me
pay,
for the amount of time
yeah,
I've played in a
exactly.
video game. Yeah.
But the initial pay-in for this game was about $650 at the time I joined in. So I saved up some of the profits. I rolled it into Axie Infinity. I made my money back in a few weeks, and from there, I was literally playing a video game on my phone, making I would I would say it was kind of a lot of money for playing a video game. And again, it came to me. I was like, how is this possible? Why is this possible? How is this even making sense right now? So I took another deeper dive into blockchain and NFTs, and everything kind of just cascaded in a way where each new thing that I was learning was interesting me more. So I wanted
Right.
to learn more about it. And
Right.
after that, I was playing Axie Infinity for a bit. Then these things started coming up, like profile picture, PFP NFTs, Bored Ape Yacht Club. All of these NFTs started popping up on a secondary marketplace called OpenSea. So again, I took profits from Axie Infinity. I rolled it into this new thing that I was learning about, which was NFTs. And I started purchasing NFTs. I started flipping them, and all of this stuff, with, again, I don't like to say that it wasn't for the money. In the beginning, it was all for the money because I was making so much of it, and it really got my interest peaked. But I think what I didn't realize was what was interesting me more was the technology behind all of it. And what happened at the end of 2021 was I was like, okay, I don't see this being very sustainable for a long period of time. I'm not going to be doing this for the next 10 years, making the kind of money that I'm making right now. So what I really wanted to
Wait a
do
minute. Were
was,
you
okay,
making good money, Sean?
uh, yeah, I would say I wasn't in the negatives.
Good. That is
Um,
good money.
I didn't lose, I didn't lose money in the NFT kind of trend and everything. Everything that I've done, um, I was very I was very cautious. I only used the profits that I made from things that I've made previously, and that's what I
Yeah.
rolled into the next.
Yeah.
Um, so I wasn't very like gung ho and like just invested everything or a lot of what I had into things. I was very cautious, but I still wanted to learn and try things out. And I think for me, I was very fortunate because at the time where I joined, I was kind of at the forefront of it. So I didn't come in when things were high. I had started a bit earlier. So it was kind of like stepping stones along the way.
Yeah.
Um, which isn't the case for most people. A lot of times, a lot of people joined during the really high peak, and then of course the crash came, and that's where a lot of people got turned away or things like
Tears.
that from the technology.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, after doing all of that, I was like, this isn't sustainable. I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. But I'm really interested in the technology. So
Yeah.
end of 2021, I was like, okay, I want to learn how to create my own NFT project. So at that time, I jumped into coding, trying to learn how to create smart contracts, all of these things to create NFTs. I ended up fast forwarding to the beginning of 2022. I launched my own NFT collection called Aloha Friends, which was a very small collection of 808, so 808 for Hawaii, 808
That's the
NFTs.
area code, folks, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
that's the
from
area
Hawaii.
code. Yes.
It's the area code. The
And
808.
I did everything. It was a project completely made by myself. I did the art, I did the marketing, I did the community building. Um, and all of that was through experiences that I've had that past year. And when I first launched the project, I, of course, had met so many people in the space and everything. And, it wasn't ever my intention to, my project's going to sell out instantly as soon as it goes public. I thought, it'd take maybe a few weeks, a couple months. And I put my project live. And within 30 minutes, I actually sold out of the whole project.
Wow.
And my project was trending for a few hours as one of the top projects trading on the secondary market, like on OpenSea and everything. And at that time, that was a really big deal. And from
How did
there,
you feel
it
at
was
that
it was a
time?
little weird. I was on something called Etherscan. Basically, it's you can see the transaction history of what's happening on the blockchain, and I was just refreshing and seeing the total amount of revenue that was coming in through it just increase and increase until it was sold out within 30 minutes. And from there, I tried to continue the project and everything. But my project was a little bit different from other projects. I wasn't promising like big returns or anything like that. It was basically an educational NFT where if you had my NFT, I had a website that you could access that had educational videos on how you could replicate and create your own project just as I did. So that was the whole idea of the NFT that I sold. And, fast forward from there, I started learning more and more about developing these in the Web3 space, from smart contracts to then, I came across a tool called Thirdweb, and, it helped you build these Web3 applications very quick and easy, which I didn't really find a tool like this, learning it from scratch. And
Yeah.
once I found Thirdweb, just this whole idea of how quickly and how simple I could build Web3 applications, I started using the
This is
tool.
why I love Thirdweb.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool, and I think once you learn how to use it, you start to learn and kind of think of new ideas and ways that Web3 is possible. So I started, learning this tool. And for me, the next goal was, okay, if I want something long term in this Web3 space, which is what I think my goal was to do something in the Web3 space. I knew that, going down the line of like the developing side, the technical side was probably the best option, especially for a long term goal. So I started studying, learning how to code, and doing all of these things and using Thirdweb at the same time.
Sean,
And
what kind of coding did you learn, if I could ask?
so back in the day, I like this is like maybe like 8-10 years ago, I learned very basic coding, so like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But of course, coming to in today's world, you have to learn a little bit more. So I started learning things like React, taking another deep dive back into JavaScript because a lot has changed. And then on top of that, that was just for, your front end website or your web application. Web3 comes with a whole nother set of things that you have to learn, which include things like smart contracts and how do you connect your smart contract to interact with your web application. So all of those things from, if you're starting off and you want to learn how to build or develop things in a Web3 space or Web3 app, learning how to just build regular Web2 apps using things like React, I think is one thing. But you can also just focus on the Web3 stuff, which are things like smart contracts, which requires something called Solidity, which is their programming language. And that comes with its whole set of, things that you can do. So you don't need to know it all. You can choose one part. But for me, I kind of wanted to, be able to put all the puzzle pieces together. And I already had some experience with the front end stuff, from years back. So I just kind of had to relearn that stuff and then plug in the Web3 things into it.
Okay, so if I could just back up a little bit, it sounds like to learn, some of the things to learn for Web3 is HTML, CSS, JavaScript's helpful, React is helpful, but the other bits to learn for Web3 is learning how to do a smart contract, learning perhaps the language validity to learn how to code a smart contract. I think that's like the main bits. And this is probably one of the reasons why I love like Thirdweb. If you're listening, I kind of love you, but it's because you make it reasonably cohesive for somebody who's learning how to use your product to be able to just get started and start playing around and making a thing. So thank you. That's all I gotta say on that.
Yeah, no, thank you. But yes, it's I would say Thirdweb is a tool that makes connecting that smart contract stuff and the the Web2 front end stuff that already exists and putting them together. It's a great tool and a very easy tool to use to accomplish those things. So, going back to me learning how to code and do all of this Web3 stuff, I then, wanted to basically use my skills from before, which I have in my 20s, I was a very try everything kind of person. So I have experience doing creative work from video creation, YouTube videos, and things like that. So I kind of intertwined everything that I was doing, learning coding, sharing my experience through video tutorials, all of this, posting it on social media. And what ended up happening was I ended up getting a contract gig from Thirdweb to create video tutorials. And that eventually led to me getting a full-time position at the company. And it was this whole story of, me being interested in this stuff, then learning the underlying technology, going further with that, and really just showcasing my work and my learning through that whole journey. And that ended up landing me a Web3 job at a Web3 tech company.
Well done, Thirdweb, for looking at finding this guy and bringing him into your stable. That was very wise of you, I think. So that sounds like a good story. So it sounds like you tried a lot of things, you got interested, and even though you were motivated by what everybody's motivated by, the Benjamins, you just kind of took some of your other interests and brought it all together in a way that you were sharing your journey, you were sharing how you were learning and teaching things to people. So Thirdweb said, hey, why don't you come over and do this for us and we'll pay you? And you said, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's a good story. I mean, it sounds also like it took a fair bit of while. It wasn't something that was overnight. It took
I would say so. If you look back, I was first introduced to the NFT through the NBA Top Shot stuff. I will just say like beginning of 2021. And I didn't start working at Thirdweb till the beginning of 2023. So it took a little over 2 years for that whole process, but it was all just a learning experience. And, the space in general itself is fairly new too. So I was just kind of growing with the space itself as it was going.
Wow. That's a great story. Thank you. Because I know that I'm interested in Web3, and I think it's a lot to do with the technology. I think the technology is interesting. You can have talks about some of the other types of things of living in a world where information is transparent, or that information is, you can't change it. So I'm hoping that it maybe lies or falsehoods are not part of the Web3 world. I think that's something that interests me. So I really do appreciate that what you're sharing it takes time to get there. You know, it's not something that's just overnight.
Yeah.
Um, Before I move on, um, actually, I think I'll just want to ask you, um, what should one expect in a career in Web3 now that you've been doing it roughly, I would say, 3/4 of a year?
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Um, so to expect from a Web3 career, I think it's very much what you might expect from like a startup tech company, because that's what a lot of these companies are. They're still startups. They're very young. Web3 hasn't been around for a very long time. So the idea and the whole environment around Web3 is people are still creating these very brand new things. People are creating ideas, every single week something new in Web3 is being announced. Someone, created something new that's revolutionary. Someone created an app that a bunch of people are using now. Someone created an experience. So it's a very fast moving, fast paced environment. But it's also the exciting part because it's so fresh and brand new that the possibilities are pretty much endless. We haven't discovered everything that you can do with blockchain technology. We haven't discovered what's the best way to create an app that mass majority of people are going to start using. We haven't discovered all these things, and I think that's the fun, enjoyable part of being that I enjoy in the Web3 space is I get to be part of that community or group of people that are learning and building these things or helping people build these things to, you know, find the answers to all those questions.
So, can you talk about maybe what is a typical Thirdweb life day for you in Hawaii?
Um, yeah. So in my particular role, at Thirdweb, I do. I am basically in charge of creating the video content for our YouTube channel, and this includes things like tutorials. We build out applications from starting from nothing to building out a full working application. So a lot of my day is within a week. It's planning out the videos, planning out the code that goes into these tutorials or builds. Um, so I kind of lay out everything, build it out myself, kind of lay it out in a script or step by step. How am I going to teach this in a way that makes sense? And then
Wow.
it goes to recording the video, so rebuilding the everything over again, except this time explaining in detail each step along the way. And after that, my week could also include of writing technical guides. So basically, taking what I've recorded in those YouTube videos into a written format that can be posted in like a blog post or something. Um, Meetings, figuring out and learning our new tools that we're coming out with or that we're working on, um, thinking of other ideas and stuff. So a lot of it is, I think, brainstorming, and then I guess you could put it into three parts. It's a lot of it's brainstorming ideas, building out those ideas, and then formatting those builds into instructional and educational formats, whether it be in text, video, etc.
So it sounds like when you do a lot of collaboration with your team,
Mhm.
um, and are you keeping an eye? You mentioned earlier that there's always something going on in Web3 in the sense that um, people are building out things, capabilities that you might not have seen yet in the Web3 world. Um, are you having conversations about that in your collaborations? Are you necessarily including those ideas as well, or I mean, how do
Yeah.
you how do you make that determination? I guess.
So being in the, I mean, if you look at the Web3 space in general, it's not a very large space. It's still fairly small. So when someone in Web3 talks about something, you kind of hear about it fairly quickly just because
Mm,
of the small size or community of people in it. Um, but of course, part of the whole Web3 and having a career in Web3 is knowing what's happening in Web3. And when topics come up in the space, there are a lot of chit chat and stuff. A lot of people talk about it, and we try to find ways of how do we insert ourselves into that conversation. How do we make sure that people can hear about Thirdweb's tools, or what's our take on a certain tooling or experience that people are developing. Is this, and we kind of just put our own voice and say into a topic and into the conversation. And I think, again, the space moves so quick. 1 month in this space feels like a year, and you just have to stay on top of it. And I think that's when you're in it and you really truly are passionate about the technology and everything, it's a fun thing because, again, you're just part of this ride of, something new got created. You feel like you're with this group of people getting one step closer to the goal. And yeah.
so it sounds like you're never bored.
No, never boring. There's always something to do, something to learn, um, something to research about. Yeah, it never ends.
Um, I have to ask though, how are you finding, life balance with this excitement in your life?
Um, I think, ever since starting career in Web3, the work and life balance has become a lot more balanced, per se.
Oh,
Prior to it, working another job that has nothing to do with this stuff, and then having to use my own time to make sure that I'm keeping up to date and staying up
yeah,
to date on all this information so that I can eventually make that transition. That is where, for me, it was a personal sacrifice of, I know I have to sacrifice this time, but I know the goal and outcome that I can achieve if I do it. Um, so I would say, prior to my old job, work-life balance, of course, it was more work than, personal life. And then I made it all about work, whether it's was my job and, learning Web3 stuff outside, to now having a very good balance because of that sacrifice of time.
yeah, yeah. I think I saw. Can't remember where, to tell you the truth. Uh, but I think I saw one of this. You posted something of a day in the life of working in the Web3 world, and it was, I think you took your son for a ride on a stroller so you can go get
Mhm.
yourself some coffee or some boba drinks, and then sit there pounding on the keyboard and making you like it was just a really nice 15-second thing of all the things you did in a day.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, that seems pretty cool. I might be interested in that. I don't know. But it does sound like if it's something often say is if you find some work where you get paid to learn, that's the best way to learn.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
we have a
agreed.
question. I thought it's kind of timely. Jennifer asked, "How do you like working at a remote first company? Do you work at a remote first company? I didn't know
Yes,
that."
we are a remote first company. We do have
Take a
offices
drink. Take a
in,
drink.
yeah.
Cheers.
um, we do have offices in SF and in New York,
Yes.
but a lot of the company and the employees are pretty much worldwide, from Europe to Asia to me being in the middle of an island, Hawaii, in the middle of the sea. Um,
The Pico of the Pacific.
yeah, but working at a remote first company, it was a change because I haven't had a remote job before. I worked in person at a actual office working with people. Um, Even then, the experience during COVID when we were working from home wasn't really remote work. It was more of, we jump on calls, make sure everyone's doing good, everyone's on the same page kind of thing. Um, so joining a remote first company, I think one, communication is key. You have to make sure that you're communicating, whether it's jumping on video chats, whether it's using messaging someone, and talking back and forth. And I've also learned that the communication most of the times have to be really precise and to the point. You don't really get to have that side chit chat as often as you would like. But we do have in-person meetups at our main offices, which we get to hang out with each other in person and everything, which is nice because you get to know your coworkers and everything on a personal level. But yeah, working in a remote first company, it's a bit different for me because the time zones are a little bit askew. And my main team that I work with is on the East Coast, which is 6 hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, we've built these flows and everything that work with the time differences of how we deliver work to one another, that whether it's a video that needs to be edited or something like that, we've created these workflows that allow us to work with the time zone differences. So I think a lot of it is just, getting to know your team, how you guys work together, how you guys communicate. And from there, it's, trying to just, I'm on the computer every day. And, if I need to take a break to go play with my son for 5 minutes or something, I do have the opportunity and chances to do that. So.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. If you have any more questions, folks, just pop it into the chat and we'll take it as it goes. But let's move on. So I'd like to ask you, why do you think Web3 has become more interesting lately?
Yes, I definitely think that Web3 has taken a, everyone's heard about, the crypto, the NFTs, and then all, last year it kind of just all tanked down and, went downhill from there.
Yeah, yeah. It was a
And
hot mess.
yeah, um, and I would say we all saw it coming in some shape or form because a lot of the reasoning for people being in the space was, like you said, because of the money, because of the same way I started, it was because there was an opportunity to make money. And a lot of times, I'll be walking or I have a chat with a friend. They're like, "Oh, what are you up to?" I'm like, "Oh, I work for a Web3 company." And they're like, "Oh, what is that?" I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
NFTs and cryptocurrency. I kind
You're
of
a
work in
crypto
that
bro,
field."
bro.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Oh, so you're like a scam artist now?" I'm like, "No, no, no, not that." But it's it's hard to talk people into understanding what that space is all about and what the technology is all about, because there's that stigma of
Yeah.
what has happened the past couple of years. But I think the people who have stayed in the space are the ones who truly believed in the technology, the underlying technology of it all. And those people over the past couple years have been building tools, building applications, building these things that are going to transform the way I think a lot of people perceive those things like cryptocurrencies and NFTs.
I hope
Because
so.
back, if you're familiar with Web3 a couple years ago, you had to get something called a wallet that, is where you held all of your money and your digital assets. And if you lost the wallet, that went out there goes everything. You're in charge of everything yourself, which, you know, was a double-edged sword. A lot of people liked it because it meant that there is no other, you know, person or entity that was also in charge of your valuables, like a bank or something like that, where a lot of times people, in the space would make the argument that, the bank doesn't really hold your money. They're just using your money to make more money for themselves, which, in finance is a whole thing. And, being able to hold your own, you know, assets and everything in your own wallet, your control of it, was something that a lot of people saw, very valuable. The whole decentralized network where, sometimes you'll hear that phrase. I think Skylar mentioned it, not your keys, not your tokens. It was a common phrase that was used, but I think we're getting closer to a point nowadays where the things that you saw a couple years ago are still going to be there, but they're not going to look and feel the way that they were a couple years ago. And what I mean by that is, today we're getting very close to being able to use an application, being able to use an application, but not feel like you're using a Web3 application. So before wallets were an important thing. You have to like click a couple buttons, connect your wallet, make sure that it was installed in your browser, all of that stuff. Today, you can simply just enter in an email, fill out an OTP that you get, your code or verification code set to your email. You put that in and you now have a wallet connected to an application, which is very similar to the user experience flows that we have in the Web2 space. Nowadays, before to buy crypto or an NFT, you have to have crypto to spend, and there are these transaction fees, and there are this nuance of what's happening when you're purchasing this thing. Today there's ways where you can do the exact same thing. You pay with a credit card, you put in your card information, it tells you the cost of what you're buying, you fill it out just like you would buying or shopping online on any shop that you would today. But on the back end of it, all the crypto transactions, all the blockchain transactions are happening. Just you as a user no longer see or experience those things. So as far as what's becoming interesting lately, the space and the technology is getting closer and closer to being able to mask and hide away all the technical nuances that people were scared of before, and present it to you in a way that is no different than the applications that you're currently using today on the web.
So you hear that, folks? It's becoming more Web 2 as we speak. So it's becoming more comfortable as what we're used to. And by the way, OTP, one-time password, just in case you didn't know what that meant. But that's probably one of the things you might picked up in my conversations with Sean is we always talk about UX, obviously, because I like to talk about UX. That's what I do. And I know that in the past few months since I've met this man at the beginning of this year, I've watched the user experience of Web3, the wallet experience in particular, change and become more inviting to people who might want to use it for something. So I agree. That is something that's becoming more interesting lately. Anyway, let's move on. What are some of the challenges of creating a Web3 idea?
So some of the challenges, I think this connects a lot to the previous question of, how times have changed. The challenge right now is still getting the Web3 experience to a point that mass majority of people and users can experience it without the, extra technical nuances that get added on to the Web3 stuff. And safely, yes.
And safely. I think that's the thing that's a challenge for me, is doing something safe.
Yeah. Just because the way blockchain technology works, it's an immutable database essentially. So, if you make a mistake and you send someone 10 times the amount of money you're supposed to send them, the only way you're getting it back is if that person agrees to send you back the extra money that they sent you. Of course, there are ways now that can be mediated and stuff with, smart contracts and everything. But, that I think is still the challenge, is how do we get the space to a point that people are familiar with, like using Web2 applications. Another challenge, I think, is getting people to understand the potential of blockchain technology, because there's a lot of things today that we use, whether it's a cash app, whether it's something online shopping, whether it's loyalty point programs. There's a lot of these tools that we use today in a Web2 space that can easily be created with a Web3 application. But then the challenge is now, why Web3 version of it versus a Web2 version of it? And it's, understanding the potential and the possibilities of the Web3 technology. What more does it add to the Web2 version of it? How can we now get creative with how we do certain things? Like, we never thought Uber, being able to just go on your phone, anyone could be a taxi and you could order someone to give you a ride somewhere. That wasn't seen as something that we would be able to do when taxis were a thing. And we're in that mindset shift right now as well, where we're going to have to create applications and use cases for these Web3 apps that are going to be a little bit of something that we might not agree with at first, but it's that mind shift to, okay, this now makes sense. And once we're there, we're going to be like, why did we ever do it the other way? Like, this way is so much better. So a lot of the challenges, I think, comes with the understanding of the technology and making sure that transition is as easy as possible. And that goes to the whole user experience part of, can we make a Web3 app feel like a Web2 app?
Thank you for that. Funny you should mention user experience a little bit. So we have a question from Creative Creatures. I'm curious if there might be some biggish brands which are driving the improvement of the wallet user experience. Do you have any comment about that?
Yeah, I think there are many brands out there that are taking their own approach to what the wallet experience should be. And I can't say that one experience or one brand is better than another. I think they all have their positives and they have their cons as well. But I think what it's going to end up coming down to is which brand is going to be the one to execute to the users and get that mass group of users to use their tool. It may not be the best one on paper, but if it's the one that users want to use and that the users experience the best, I think that, of course, becomes the one that people start to use. So I think everyone right now is driving towards, how do we make the wallet experience the best, because that is literally the entry point to using a Web3 application. Like, if you don't have a wallet, you can't really use Web3 applications, just how the technology works. And how do you create that best experience to get someone a wallet? Whether it's, do we teach them how to create our own wallet? Do we create one for them, on the back end side of things? Do we find a middle between both of those things? I think everyone has their way of doing it. It's just, again, going to be who presents it the best and gets the most people using that tool or method. So there isn't one particular, but I think in the future it's down to the users, right? It's what are they going to use, or what's going to catch the eyes and everything of the users who are actually using those tools and applications.
I do wonder a little bit on this I've been watching how Thirdweb has incrementally improved the wallet experience to the point where you can have a one-time password, or you can use your social signups at like Google or Apple, and these feel very Web 2. I think what I've been wondering about is if they'll ever white brand it so that other, like a Walmart, can use a Thirdweb wallet product, and then just throw Walmart all over it. I only bring up Walmart because of something Ellen had brought up about the penguin, so it's still stuck in my mind. It's not like I can go to a Walmart here in New Zealand and use it. So it seems like it's such a brand I can never use in New Zealand. But I do wonder if technology companies who just create a really good wallet, if they will be the ones that will see used by other big brands in general. It's just a curiosity that I have. But thanks for the question. So I appreciate it. All right. I I think you've really shared a lot of these things already about your experiences so far, but I was just wondering, is there any insights of your adventure into Web3 in the past? This is your third year. You're on your year
Yeah.
three, I think.
Or going on year three almost. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost done. Yeah, because it's bloody the end of year for the northern hemisphere, but it's springtime in New Zealand, so we're just getting started. But yeah, do you have any other insights you want to share with us?
Yeah. I think Web3 in general, like I said, will probably start. I think we're on the cusp, beginning that upward trend again of seeing this technology back in action. I think a lot has happened in a couple of years. One being, of course, the crash from crypto and everything, and of course, web. Blockchain applications are directly impacted by those types of things because at the end of the day, blockchain technology and crypto kind of they go hand in hand on how they work. So when crypto is affected, so are a lot of the applications and use cases for blockchain technology. But I do think at the same time the introduction of AI and everything also put Web3 stuff, under the rug a little bit, or towards the back of people's minds, because AI was this new technology and this new tool that a lot of people were starting to develop and getting into. So I do think Web3 has its time. Like I said before, we're getting closer and closer to really being able to create those types of apps and tools that people can start using and not need to feel like they're using a Web3 application. But all of these things, a lot of bigger named companies have, started dabbling back into Web3 stuff. You mentioned, Walmart introducing Pudgy Penguins, which was an NFT project. They sell basically a physical stuffed animal that allows you
Yeah,
to claim an NFT that you can use online. And they have different, activities and stuff that you can do with it. We have companies, now looking into loyalty programs. How can we create, a point system that now track on chain and really see where um, who, who our valuable customers are, reward them with certain things. um, and again, that I think is going to evolve a little bit more because of blockchain technology. What you can do with a point system or a loyalty program is much more than you can do with a point system today in the Web 2 world. There are just things that you can unlock and features and possibilities that maybe haven't been thought of yet. And another point too, that I think we'll see Web 3 blockchain technology start to come in is gaming. Um, not much gamers are fans of NFTs. Um,
yeah,
but I think it's one because again of that stigma that was put out there. And at the same time, not fully understanding what benefit does it give them as a gamer. Gamers want to play their games because they love playing the games and they love, the game itself. So not fully understanding the benefit of what blockchain or what NFTs will provide them. But at the same time, I always have this conversation with some of my friends on like, when are we going to see NFTs in games and stuff like that? NFTs were 2 years ago, and we still haven't seen like a really popular NFT game come out. And someone also, one of my coworkers also made a good point where games aren't developed in 1 or 2 years. Really good games take, a longer period of time to develop and create. So that timeline is coming up. So the game companies that started 2 years ago when NFTs were really a big thing, they've had a couple years under their belt already where they've been able to develop a really good game for people to enjoy. So hopefully in the next year or two, we start to see more and more games come out to the market. And I think that's an important part of getting people to adopt these games is the game has to be fun. The game has to be a good game. No one's just going to play it just because it's a Web3 game or it's an NFT game. The game has to be good, and that just takes time, for a game studio to develop.
I have to say, as a gamer who played World of Warcraft and met her husband there, I would Blizzard. I know you're having BlizzCon next month. I would not be sad if I could take my High Warlord. Yes, I have a High Warlord PvPer and make that an MVP because it's just time and effort. And I actually think they've had shenanigans that have been kind of sad. That's kind of the way life is, I think, right now. Sometimes there's sad things, but it's still such a powerful platform. It's a great brand. I've been playing Blizzard games, gosh, over 20 years already. When I was first introduced to them in 1995 with Diablo. So, hey, Blizzard, are you going NFTs? Are you doing anything cool besides, really strange achievements? But I agree with you there. I actually kind of moved over. You've already gone in that space, but it was predictions. Where will we be in 5 years in Web3? And what I heard you say is gaming is going to be part of it. Things with having a user experience that it seems more Web 2.
Mhm.
That was something I sort of heard you. Do you have one more prediction maybe for Web 3?
Yeah. I think kind of a prediction, kind of more of a personal want this to happen in 5 years. But if things, progress the way that they are, and we can really create these experiences, these Web3 experiences that feel no different than what a user is doing today on a web app or an mobile app on their phone. For me, it's the unlock of the potential use cases of NFTs, of digital assets, of cryptocurrency. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will look at an NFT and be like, oh, it's a JPEG. It is a picture that I'm collecting, or it's a digital piece of art that I'm collecting. But understanding the nuances and the technology under it, I can now use that piece of art to say, hey, this is your key to gain access to something else. This is your key to now gain access to a discount at my art gallery. This is a key to now, be able to buy this exclusive product where you have to verify and you have to show authentication of this digital asset. But it also goes further than that, right? Because of the blockchain and its interoperability, I can now be a new upcoming artist and say, hey, that NFT that Nani released of her artwork that gave you all these amazing stuff, if you come over to my store or my art gallery and you show it to me, I can now verify and approve those same discounts towards my stuff. And the great thing is I don't need approval from you saying that, oh, this is, can I borrow the verification for your artwork? Because everything's on chain or on the blockchain and recorded. I can take any NFT, any asset, and use that as a verification or authentication method to share things that I want to share. And I think that
I like that idea.
becomes very powerful because now you get to do this cross promotion, cross platform kind of marketing that I think becomes very powerful to companies and brands. And I think a lot of stuff hasn't been unlocked there as far as how do you take advantage of, an NFT that some other popular brand came out with, whether it's, Manchester United who came out with an NFT. I can now say, hey, if there are any Manchester United fans in Hawaii that have their NFT, like you get a discount on this soccer, whatever we're doing here on the island. Or, you can now start to utilize these things, I think, in different ways. And that's, I think, the mindset shift, right? We can't really think of these things because we haven't really fully unlocked the understanding and potential of it yet.
I have a question though. Do you and your mates talk about just the personal events that can be captured, whether it's you want to call it NFT, which is fine. For me as a immigrant, as a expat, things that I like that I have to, hold, as my passport, right? My passport. I have my social security card. I have my marriage certificate. I have my education bona fides, right? And they're all paper. Like I have to keep everything in a thing that has all my American stuff in case I need it to deal with Social Security, or I have to deal with things that go on in the States. Family died, family gets married, but it's all these things that are extremely tangible. They're people events that we have. Regardless of where we come from. And there are a lot of things that I have to keep track of. And I would love to be, what I love about your story is I'm not necessarily phoning up to some place and then I'm showing them these passports. I'm showing all these documents to say, this is me and I want to do something here with you. To have that clarity, I would love to think if anybody's talked about just what those things could be, those type of life things could be.
I think that has always been a conversation, because once we realized, once people start to realize how we can use the blockchain and create things like NFTs and everything like that, I think that has always been part of the discussion, right? But I think just to this comment right here, a lot of it has to deal with systems and things that are already in place. And it would require changing those systems and updating those systems to something like this, which is a very hard thing to do. Even updating, old systems that, to something that's even current day, right? Not even Web3, just more advanced, the Web2 version of it. It's the regulations, it's the, all the nitty gritty behind the scene things that need to be done to make it possible. I think, ideally it would be a much better way of doing things, right? If things were just digital, if I had a way to hold everything that was important to me in one area. And we have the technology to make it possible. I think it's just, again, how are you going to migrate all of what it is now to that new thing? And I think that is where the difficulty comes into play, because one, someone has to be brave enough to have that conversation and want to take that on. And then you have to get the other side to agree and everything to make it happen. So it's possible, but it has its, I wouldn't say road bumps, more like very tall walls that you need to get through.
Build a wall. It's funny that we're talking about this because another person, Creative Creatures, kind of had the same, this conversation about, how might Web3 develop fully without transformation of the systems that created Web2, which you just was talking about. Is that even possible? So Creative, I hope you got your answer from that. I keep on thinking, can't everything be an API? I don't know. Maybe there's a new business model out there ready to move the Web2 world data systems into that. Anyway, thank you for that. So what do you think? Where would you recommend people to go and learn more about Web3?
This question, I get asked the question a lot because of what I do, and the people I'm around and everything. I think for me, I like to break it down into two parts. It depends where you're looking to go with Web3, because Web3 is a young, you know, area of technology right now. It is very technical.
Yeah.
So, learning about Web3, what you're going to be learning is the technical stuff of Web3. You're going to be learning what is a blockchain? How does a blockchain work? How do blockchain transactions happen? How do blockchains interact with smart contracts? What are smart? Like, you're going to be learning very technical things about Web3 in order to learn about Web3. Now, there's, of course, once you understand those technical things about Web3, you kind of unlock the more higher level understanding of what Web3 can do. But a lot of times people try to talk about the high level stuff. What can Web3 do, right? Like we're talking about, it can be loyalty point programs. It can be, digital arts. It can be all of this stuff. It's very high level stuff, but it's hard to comprehend how is that possible without, understanding the technical nuances of it. And I think that's one thing that you have to be okay with when going to learn about Web3. You have to have that understanding of, I need to understand the technical stuff in order to understand the possibility of what Web3 can do. We're not there yet where the technical stuff is, understandable for everyone. Like today, we have a basic understanding of how the internet works and how web applications work. A lot of us kind of understand that there's a server or a storage of information somewhere, and that's where all our pictures that we upload and stuff go. So we have a very basic understanding of it. Rewind maybe 15-20 years ago, we would probably be like, wait, what do you mean? Like there's a place, like it was very technical back then as well. And I think that's where Web3 is right now. We're not at a place where we can understand the high level stuff without understanding the technical stuff. So that's my first recommendation I tell people is you have to be okay and willing to understand the technical stuff of Web3. Now, once you're okay with that, there's a lot of places you can go to start learning about things like blockchain, smart contracts, all of those stuff. I think this was mentioned before, but AZ16 is a great place for a library of information. You can search YouTube if you like video, stuff like that. I am a big advocate of using AI to learn. So even asking something like ChatGPT to explain things for you in a simplified way so that you understand it. There's many ways that you can start learning about it. But again, I think a lot of times people don't make that distinction of, I don't need to learn about, like, I want to learn about Web3, like what is Web3? And then they start learning like, NFTs are this, and this is what you can do with NFTs, and they start very high level, and sometimes it just goes over your head or you don't understand it. Just know if you want to learn about Web3, it's searching what is a blockchain, how does a blockchain work, how the technical stuff of Web3. And once you get into that, then you'll start to learn the meat of it, and everything else after will start to make more sense.
I think that's all. I think that's great suggestions. If I may add, find Sean on YouTube and find Thirdweb. I have learned heaps from watching his videos. I actually do recommend that you just check him out and start from the beginning, like go back a few months when he first started doing this and just follow along. That's kind of what I did. I will say, if you're a lady or if you're a non-binary person, check out SheFi. I actually am part of the 9th cohort of SheFi, and one of the things I wish is like, gosh, why didn't I do this last year? Or, this is something that's been around think, since 2019, and it was started by a woman named Maggie Love, who basically wanted to teach women um, how to understand this space. And I think we're on our third week, and I'm learning heaps. And even things that I think I knew, I'm learning a much better way of expressing them. I have to say, after she explained blockchain and I had talked about blockchain, I'm like, okay, you weren't totally off, but she's giving you better language, better ways of saying those things. Because I would agree, if you can understand the technology, what you will do is just have better conversations with people who are interested in it. And what you're talking about is technology. You're not talking about crypto, right? You're not talking about. I can understand the feelings people may get that it feels dodgy. It feels. I mean, the if you looked at what was going on a year ago as they were expressing NFTs and crypto, it's not very comfortable. But if you can find communities, which is the other aspect of Web3 that I think is really important to plug into, is find communities that allow you to meet people in a space where you can be that vulnerable and say, I have no idea what's going on. What is a blockchain? What's a wallet? Um, you will find people who will join you and will help you on your journey. And then in turn, you'll probably get those smarts and you'll start telling other people, and they still might talk to you after a while. So that's what my recommendation is.
Yeah, and if I had to
Anyway,
add one
oh
more
yeah,
thing, just to
yes,
help
yes.
people, if you're looking to like learn more about this space, another way I explain it to people is if you look at it like a kind of like a funnel, right? The top wide part is called Web3. It's just what we call this space in this era. You know, it encapsulates a lot of things. It encapsulates blockchain stuff, crypto, and encapsulates AI as well. It's just the next era of the internet and next era of technology. You take it one step further down and get more specific. You look at things like cryptocurrency, you're looking at things like NFTs. That's where a lot of people, I feel, do the research.
Mm,
And that's
mm,
where maybe, misunderstanding of how is this possible? How does it work? There's one step below that, and that's the underlying technology that makes it all possible, which is blockchain technology. So when researching, like research and understand what a blockchain is, because things like NFTs is just technology built on top of the blockchain. Things like crypto are just the tokens built on top of a blockchain or a currency built on top of a blockchain. Going all the way down to the bottom and understanding how that works. You don't have to get like super detailed into it, but just like a basic understanding of how blockchain works. Just like how some of us have a basic understanding that a server stores our information on the internet. Like that's all you need to know, and now you know how the internet works with images and videos and stuff. Just on having that basic understanding of what a blockchain is helps you understand all the levels and everything above it. So again, like there's not one area I think I could point you towards to learn it, because everyone learns differently. But if there's a topic I could point you towards, and to narrow down your search, blockchain technology.
blockchain technology, folks. All right. Well, I think we're coming to the end of this. I just want to remind you that you can find Sean Watase at what Sean is watase.eth. So you have your own ETH. It's actually a totally different thing, and I'm not. We'll spend another half hour just talking about it, so I won't tell you what it is. And then Thirdweb, and like I said, I kind of like them both, so I do recommend you check them out. I think I've learned so much from both of these organizations, so I just want to point that out. Next week we're going to be talking with UX designers. Oh, I know. You designers are just overjoyed. Finally, we're talking to a designer talking about Web3 with a group out of San Francisco called Sprintfolio. So that's next week. So it's about the same time. It's a lunchtime thing. But I will tell you this, designers, if you listen to anything Sean has said, learn about blockchain, learn how to code. Designers learn how to code. I know you're going to say no, Nani, but I'm going to keep on telling you that, even if it's just a wee bit. With that, do those things that you do. If you liked it, subscribe. If you don't, that's fine. This is weird, but I think I have to say that anyway. And Sean, gosh, thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing your I always get stuck here because I want to pop into Hawaiian and say your mana'o, because you're sharing your mana. You're sharing what you know. You're sharing your experience, and we are better because of that. And I always appreciate my conversations with you. I'm definitely a Sean fan, but mostly I just think you're a wonderful human being, and I always appreciate the time you spend with me, helping my mind explode and just get better. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, that's the end of us. So see you later. Till next week. Bye.
See you, everyone. Thank you.